Look at you, lazy, dramatic, you've ruined our lives. You are a problem. Dad's voice cracked the hallway like a belt. Block her cards, Mom muttered from the doorway. If she leaves, she doesn't come back. I smiled because anger never fed me when I was small. Silence did. But my hands were shaking so hard I had to grip the strap of my overnight bag just to keep them from telling on me. There's a special kind of cold that moves in when your own house turns its lights against you. It sits on your tongue like metal. Everyone, my name is Noel Hart, I'm 26. I used to believe love meant learning how to fit into a smaller chair at a table that kept shrinking. Tonight, I'm learning what it means to stand. Dad's words hung in the air like a verdict while the kitchen clock hammered seconds into my ribs. I tried to breathe without making a sound. The hallway smelled like floor polish and old arguments. Mom crossed her arms, phone already in her hand, the judge who had decided the case before I spoke. I'm not your burden, I said, quiet as a closed book. You are, Dad snapped. You drain, you distract, you disrupt. You're an expense. Expense. I used to be their pride, honor roll certificate stuck to the fridge like medals. Somewhere between then and now, I turned into a line item that didn't balance. I slid the silver house key from my ring, the one with the tiny scratch from prom night, and set it on the hall table. It looked small and brave. I'll make it easy, I whispered. Mom's eyes flashed. Don't come back. The front door sighed when I opened it, the porch light throwing a weak halo on the steps. The night smelled like wet asphalt and the neighbors' cut grass, and for a second, I wanted to be 10 again, running down this same path with skinned knees and a popsicle, not a pulse full of thunder. I stepped into the dark anyway. My phone buzzed, Mom's text, don't come back. 2 more words arrived, like salt in tea, we're serious. I typed slowly, thumb steady now, okay. I just stopped paying your mortgage. Send. For a full heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then my phone lit up like a struck match, Dad calling, Mom calling, a string of messages tumbling so fast they blurred. Behind me, the house stood very still, a shadow with windows. I didn't turn around. Because some doors, once closed, become mirrors, showing you the person you were always going to be, once you finally walked through. The phone wouldn't stop trembling in my hand, buzzing against my palm like a trapped bee. Dad's name. Mom's name. Then numbers I didn't even recognize, neighbors maybe, or cousins dragged in as reinforcements. They thought panic would pull me back, but all I felt was a strange, icy calm wrapping itself around my spine. Answer it, Noel, I whispered to myself. Or don't. Let them sweat. I slid into my car, the leather seat sighing beneath me, the air still holding the faint scent of coconut lotion from earlier that afternoon. I rested the phone face down on the passenger seat, its glow flashing against the dark interior like a warning beacon. For years, I'd covered their mortgage. Every first of the month, without fail, I transferred the money. I told myself it was love. They told me it was duty. Now I realized it was a leash, one they never imagined I'd slip free from. My chest rose and fell, the silence louder than their shouting. I imagined them reading my message, hands shaking, the floor tilting beneath them. For once, I wasn't the one trembling. They were. A new message slid across the screen, don't play games. Put it back. Now. Another followed seconds later, you'll regret this. You need us more than we need you. I laughed, but it came out broken, a sound halfway between a sob and a victory cry. Need them? I was the roof over their heads, the reason their lights turned on, the reason their fridge hummed through the night. Without me, their empire of criticism had no foundation. I leaned back, fingers tracing the steering wheel, eyes on the quiet street ahead. Porch lights flickered in the distance, moths circling halos of weak gold. Inside my car, though, it felt like a confession booth, dark, close, filled with the scent of truth. I whispered, for years, I thought I was drowning them. Turns out, I was the lifeboat. The phone vibrated again, harder now, as if urgency could seep through glass. My screen filled with new words, harsher than before. Selfish brat. Ungrateful. We raised you. But under it all, I caught the faintest note of desperation. And desperation, I knew, was only the beginning of their unraveling. The night stretched around me, heavy and endless, while my phone kept pulsing like a wounded thing. I finally flipped it over and scrolled, message after message, each one sharper than the last. Dad, do you have any idea what you've done? Mom, mortgage is due tomorrow. Fix this. Dad again, we'll lose everything because of you. The irony almost made me laugh. Because of me? No, because of years of pretending their cruelty was parenting. I'd kept their house alive while they suffocated me inside it. My chest felt tight, but not from fear. From release. For the first time, their survival didn't rest on my shoulders. I drove with no destination, headlights carving tunnels through the dark. The hum of the engine felt steady, like a heartbeat I could finally trust. Somewhere between intersections, I remembered every small betrayal that led to this moment. Dad ripping up my college acceptance letter because community college is good enough for a girl. Mom telling the neighbors I failed when she'd used my savings to cover her boutique debts. The Christmas I worked double shifts just to afford presents, only to watch them rewrap my gifts and hand them to my sister. Each memory was a brick, and tonight, I finally set them down. The phone rang again. I let it. Then a voicemail notification popped up. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. Dad's voice spilled through the speaker, no longer roaring, but cracking. Noel, you can't just leave like this. We can't afford it. Just come home. We'll talk. Talk. The word stung. Talking never saved me before. I pulled over at a red light, city glow flickering on the windshield. My reflection stared back at me, eyes hollow but alive. I'm not your problem, I whispered into the silence. And for the first time, I believed it. Still, a strange question tugged at me, quiet but insistent. If they've lived on my money all this time, what happens when it's gone? I wasn't sure yet. But I knew the unraveling had only just begun. Morning light broke like glass across my windshield. I hadn't slept, just drifted between coffee stops and empty roads, watching the city stir awake. My phone was nearly dead, but the notifications hadn't stopped. Mom, don't be cruel. You're punishing us for everything we gave you. Dad, we can't survive without this. You owe us. Even my sister chimed in, you're heartless. Mom's crying. Just fix it. Heartless. I mouthed the word like a bitter pill. Was it heartless to finally stop bleeding for them? Or was it survival? I parked near the river, water moving slow and silver under the rising sun. The air smelled like wet stone, cool and clean, so different from the suffocating walls I'd left behind. I let the quiet wrap around me while my phone buzzed itself into exhaustion. When it finally went silent, I plugged it into the charger and waited. The screen lit up with a flood of messages, but one caught my eye. A voicemail, this time from Mom. Her voice cracked through the speaker, strained and trembling. Noel, please. The bank called this morning. They said the payment didn't go through. They're threatening foreclosure. Do you understand what you've done? Yes. I understood. I had stopped being their safety net, and now the ground beneath them was showing cracks. I closed my eyes, listening to the gulls overhead. They sounded free, wild, unclaimed. And for a moment, I envied their wings. Another message pinged in, short, sharp, from Dad, you'll regret this when we're out on the street. The words should have crushed me. Instead, I felt something new stir in my chest, a defiance so steady it almost felt like peace. I typed back, slowly, each word deliberate. I'm not your bank. Not your lifeline. Figure it out yourselves. Send. My thumb hovered over the screen afterward, waiting for guilt to flood me. But nothing came. Only the sound of the river, the warmth of sunlight on my face, and a realization that chilled me deeper than any insult ever had. They had never loved me for me. Only for what I gave. And now, I had nothing left to give. By noon, the storm had shifted. The rage in their texts softened into bargaining. Mom, we'll apologize if that's what you want. Dad, just send one more payment until we get back on our feet. My sister, please don't let them lose the house. You know they can't handle it. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, then set the phone down on the picnic table where I sat today. Around me, kids were chasing pigeons, their laughter piercing the heavy weight in my chest. I envied their lightness, the kind of joy that never lived in my childhood home. The house had never been a sanctuary. It was a stage where I performed the role of dutiful daughter, applause replaced with criticism. Yet here they were, terrified to lose it. Not because of its walls or roof, but because without me, their world crumbled. I remembered nights spent at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, balancing their bills while Dad watched sports and Mom shopped online. The memory burned hot, filling my throat with bitterness. And then, another ping, Dad again. If you love this family, you'll fix it. Love. They always twisted that word like rope around my neck. If I loved them, I'd sacrifice. If I loved them, I'd obey. If I loved them, I'd pay. But maybe love wasn't supposed to cost my freedom. I pulled the phone close and began to type. Love isn't a transaction. You used me until I broke. I'm done. My finger lingered on send, my pulse thundering. Then, click. Gone. The screen stayed still for a moment, as if even the universe was holding its breath. And then it came, a cascade of furious replies, all caps, threats dressed as pleas. But under the fury, I saw it clearly now, fear. They weren't just afraid of losing the house. They were afraid of losing control. I leaned back against the bench, the air cool on my skin, and whispered to myself, this isn't revenge. This is release. Yet deep inside, another thought bloomed, darker, sharper. If they want to see what survival looks like without me, then maybe I'll let them. By evening, my phone felt like a war drum. Every vibration rattled through me, but I refused to answer. Instead, I sat in a corner booth of a quiet diner, the smell of coffee and fried onions lingering in the air. The waitress topped off my mug with a knowing smile, like she'd seen women sit here before, women on the edge of cutting loose. The messages shifted again. My sister wrote, please. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Dad says he can't sleep. They're saying the bank might start proceedings next week. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness coat my tongue. They always used tears as weapons, silence as punishment, shame as chains. But this was different. This was panic they couldn't mask. 4 years, I had been their invisible glue. Noelle the fixer. Noelle the provider. Noelle the scapegoat. Without me, their carefully polished image was starting to crack. And it showed. I opened one of Dad's newest texts. Don't make me come find you. You're still our responsibility. Don't forget that. The words made me pause. Responsibility. That's what I'd been reduced to, a piece of property. Not a daughter, not a person. Just something to manage, control, and drain. My reflection in the diner's window stared back at me, sharp-edged under the neon glow. My hair was messy, my eyes ringed with exhaustion, but there was something else there too, steel. I typed a single message and hit send. Your responsibility ended the day you called me a problem. Now the problem is yours. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. And then silence. For once, they had no words. The waitress set down the bill, her voice soft. Everything okay, honey? I folded the slip of paper, slid cash under it, and forced a smile. Not yet, I whispered. But it will be. Outside, the night air wrapped around me, cooler now, calmer. The phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't look. Because deep down, I knew the real storm hadn't even started. The next morning, I woke in a cheap motel with peeling wallpaper and the hum of an old AC unit. My phone was still buzzing, though slower now, weaker, like the last gasps of a fire dying out. I scrolled through the latest messages. Mom, the bank officer came. They gave us a notice. You can't do this to us. Dad, we'll be homeless because of you. Everyone will know what you've done. My sister, they are falling apart. Just send the money. End this. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the cracked linoleum floor. 4 years, they held reputation above all else. Our family dinners were staged performances, smiles forced, voices careful, because what would the neighbors think? Now, the threat of public shame was clawing at them harder than the fear of losing their home. And that's when it hit me, this was never about survival. It was about image. Without me funding the lie, their mask was slipping. The motel TV buzzed faintly in the background with morning news, voices blurred. My phone vibrated again, but this time, I let it. I imagined their house, their precious fortress, sitting in silence, fear echoing in its walls, the same silence they'd used to punish me all these years. I whispered to myself, now they hear it too. A notification popped up, an email from the bank, copied to me as co-signer from years ago. The subject line read, "Final warning, account in default." My chest tightened, but not with guilt. With clarity. The unraveling was no longer a threat. It was here. I closed the email and typed one last text to my sister. Tell them the mortgage was never mine to carry. They made it my chain. Now I've cut it. Send. I lay back against the stiff motel pillows, staring at the ceiling's water stains, and felt something loosen inside me, something I thought I'd never feel, freedom edged with fire. But I also knew the silence that followed wouldn't last. They weren't done fighting. They never were. And when they struck back, I'd be ready, with something sharper than money. The strike came 2 days later. A letter slid under my motel door, stiff and official, an envelope from their lawyer. My stomach clenched as I tore it open. Inside was a demand, repayment, accusations, claims that I had abandoned familial duty. My parents had weaponized the law, thinking I'd fold under its weight like I always did. I sat on the thin carpet, papers scattered around me, the hum of the AC filling the silence. For a moment, the old fear tried to creep back in, fear of being cornered, blamed, erased. But then I noticed something they hadn't. The mortgage wasn't in my name alone. It was theirs. My payments had been voluntary. Every transfer, every dollar was proof of generosity, not obligation. I called the bank directly, voice steady. The officer confirmed it. You're not responsible. You've been covering their debt, but legally, it's theirs to carry. The words felt like iron breaking off my chest. That night, my phone lit up again, this time, not with insults, but with desperation. Mom's voice in the voicemail trembled. Noelle, we didn't mean it. Please. We can't lose the house. You know we love you. But love doesn't arrive only when the lights go out. Love doesn't scream problem or right don't come back. Love doesn't vanish the second money stops flowing. I typed slowly, carefully. I gave you years of my life, my savings, my silence. You turned it into chains. Now the chains are broken. I hope you learn how to stand without me. Send. The phone rang again. I let it. Outside, dawn was breaking, the motel curtains glowing gold. A bird perched on the railing, singing into the morning air, careless and free. I smiled because, for the first time, I recognized myself in its song. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. A quiet justice. The poetic kind that doesn't need shouting, only truth. And when the silence finally settled, I realized, their house was never my home. My freedom was. I packed my bag, stepped into the morning light, and whispered to myself the only word that mattered now.